I hear some of the jokes, you know, some of the men even saying, you know, don't waste your energy, you know, going back to early creation of mankind, it was the rib, you know, women were made out of the man rib, so you're going to be part of the man.
Many people think that we are away from Kushai, we're working for national government, and therefore we act like applied women's leave type.
Which is not true. That's not what we're trying to do here. There's a misconception by a lot of people, especially people who works at the national government. It's not a women's movement. Our concept is totally different from what the Western concept is of this women's movement. What we're trying to do is say, look, we have a problem, because it not only involves women, but it involves men too. That's why we want men to get involved in our process.
One thing we have to understand that it has this manpower, authority of man, it comes not with a sense of harmony among the family members. It creates conflict and it creates violence.
I think the goal is to try to move in a direction in which there will be some equality, some equity of the role of women within the modern government-imposed system that we have.
I'm not opposing the culture. In fact, I would like to think of myself as a protector and promoter and preserver of the culture, the Micronesian culture.
Micronesian seminar brings you island topics.
The roots of traditional culture in Micronesian society, although sometimes tentative, are deep and long. This tradition has created a very special place for women.
I was brought up to feel important as a woman. They treat us like we're delicate, fragile creature or God gives to the family. And especially if you're an oldest daughter in a family, you're given more authority, you feel more important.
In the old days, talking about back in the old days, the women are preachers. They were really preachers by the community, by the traditional leaders, and by the municipality as a whole. So way before, women are very important. They were very important. They never beaten up. They given the best food. They're treated so nicely.
As we look back, let's use the past to illuminate the present.
If we divide the division of labor, we draw the line there, or there are certain specific tasks that are the responsibility of the man, and there are specific tasks that are the responsibility of the woman. In general, overall, you will see the man's role as being publicly displayed. The woman's role we might call domestic roles.
But the underlying assumption is that they complement each other and they are for the welfare of the family and the community.
If I have boys, then my husband will be responsible to teach them how to build a dino, how to build a house, how to work in land, how to plant yams, sakal. For the girls, they have to stay in the house or with their mothers and learn the way the girls weave, how to do the washing and how to make the food and how to serve the food in a traditional, best manner way.
The important question is, to what extent are these roles equal compared to whose standard?
Men and women, each did different tasks. Never did they overlap, but together they worked for the common good.
Use one example now for the pick up breadfruit. The men who pick the breadfruit, they bring it here to the house. The women skin the breadfruit, cut it, prepare it, put it in the pot, and they get the firewood and start the fire. When the breadfruit is cooked, the men take over and they're pounding the breadfruit, you know. And then when the pounded breadfruit, they give it to the women wrap it up, and then they put it away. And then everybody eat the breadfruit.
You know, like when you change the roof of the house, that's roofs, the men are the one that preparing the ropes or the strings, and the women are the one that weaving the palm leaves. And then early in the morning, you bring all the thatch roofs, and then the young guys would be the first one to take down the old one, and then they start putting on the replacement. The women would turn around and prepare the food.
What were women's roles in traditional society? Here in Micronesia, as elsewhere, women have always been most visible in their roles as mother and homemaker.
In my families, they trained me to be a women leader at home, to know how to care for kids, to know how to prepare food.
This, I will speak, this is the truth. My mother always ensured that we ate proper food. She even put tapioca leaves, you know tapioca? She even put tapioca leaves in our soup. Making soup, she put all kinds of leaves in the soup, saying it's important, you must eat this is good for you, this is...
But women's traditional role in most island societies went far beyond taking care of the kids and preparing the meals. Island customs differed from place to place. Usually, women did much of the gardening, the cultivation of food crops. But food was not the only thing they produced.
Women were the manufacturer of traditional valuable goods. Women were the one that make the mats, pandanus mats, and the lava. And these goods were used in sometime in the purchase of canoes. They were used for wedding, exchange of gifts, funeral. It's still very much practiced. When there is a meeting, planned meeting to take place in the islands, the chief would inform the women about this event, and they would ask them to prepare some of these traditional valuable goods. And these goods usually are used for gifts to the visitors.
In Chuk, not loom weaving, but mat making, handicrafts. They make fishing nets, throw nets, things like that. And those can be used to barter for food or for other services and items that your family needs.
On most islands, women were entrusted with the care of the land. They decided how the land would be used, even who would inherit it.
Into our Panapan traditional ways, land is our money, and land is our life, and land is our asset. Land, a piece of land or a soil, to Panapans, is more valuable than money.
In Chuk, The women are the owners of the land. The men are simply protectors. They take care of the land, plant breadfruit and coconuts, the big trees for the land. But the women actually, because they're the ones who will be carrying on the clan or the family lineage, they're the ones who should always make sure they keep the land to themselves and they pass it on from generation to generation through the daughters. The father just cannot make the decision of his own and say, I'm going to give away this family land. He still has to talk over the matter with the sisters. Tell them, I'm thinking of doing this, can you help me? This is a custom, we cannot just ignore it.
Another vital role women played in Micronesian communities was that of peacemaker. Women once had an important role in resolving disputes, even in ending wars.
There was a fight that involved two cousins, and they started out at the man's house, which involved, then other men got involved and tried to break it up, and they couldn't, and then they moved from the man's house to the village, and then it seemed the whole community was in uproar, and they have to call certain female members of the clans, and once that person appeared, that lady appeared, the two that started the fight just stopped.
In wartime, what they would do is if there is a war between, let's say, my village in Chuk with the other neighboring village, if there are women present there, fighting won't occur because they provide a barrier. It's a sense of women you can't do anything if the women aren't there. Another way is when two families or two children or people are fighting and there is a death in the family. The family of the dead person would want to take revenge. And there is a fear of disruption, of violence, and many people will be hurt. What they do is they get the female member of the families who have a good relationship and get them to negotiate or to come to some terms as to how to peacefully resolve this thing.
Decision-making in the community was a mutual activity. Women had a hand in making ordinary, day-to-day decisions.
Let's say if you want your daughter to marry to somebody else, the fathers would pretty much say this, but the women would come in and to evaluate again the suitability of the women. And then therefore, if the women are confident that she's a good choice, then they will then support and say, yes, go ahead and let's go through the marriage arrangement and finalize the deal.
But women exercised a good measure of indirect authority in the community. They had parallel titles in Ponape and Palau, and probably also at one time in Koshrai.
I used to hear, that this lady by the name of Nemesaka, long ago, in the traditional Ponpen. She was a very powerful figure in the community in the traditional Ponpen way.
Talking it over with the female members of the family to see where a consensus is gives men the direction they need to relay the final decision. However, women were expected to stay out of the limelight.
In traditional society in Chuk, there are certain functions that you are the chief of the family, but you have your counterpart. So like if you're familiar with British society, there is a shadow government per se. So the women's kind of being the shadow or I'm not too familiar with the term, but a government or decision-making cabinet that operates behind the men, and then the men actually are in the forefront, mirroring the decision-making that goes on between the men and the female member of the on that.
In this shadow government, women's influence was indirect, but it strongly influenced decisions made by the community.
I would say that, and it probably varies from one society to another. For example, in Belau, transactions, as far as the concrete work things are concerned, are known to be made by women, for example. On Pohnpei, compared to Palau, this is not very well known. Women are very influential, but they are influential in a sense behind the scenes. That they're not publicly displayed. I think just because the man's role in decision making is public, it does not mean that it is much better or at a higher level than the women. The women's decision-making can be very powerful, however they are domestic, they are private.
Women have traditionally made large number of decisions in the families and in the community. When and how to promote certain community affairs, or, for example, women could initiate the promotion of the culture. And there are a lot of other decision-making that involves not just the men but the women.
Because I play a very important role in my own community, not necessarily as a chief or anybody very important to play some tasks, role, whatever. But I feel very important when I'm in church, just as a woman.
To make sure that you have order and peace, women would initiate, I would call it some kind of a call for order and peace. For example, the fight took place and the women interfere and put a stop to it. But they didn't just stop there. The female members of the family would get together and said, okay, we have to call for order and peace. So they would get together, bring lavas, and then they would go either to the man's house or sometimes they could go to the chiefs. And they would present these lavas. I know that in some of the Acton Island, the women would just go to the man's house and kind of spread hang up the lavas. And then the men would know that because of the fight, that's why, these women are there. The men call a meeting and then inform, sometimes just those people involved, or sometimes the men, all the men, and then they would tell them, they will inform them of the desire of the women and the children. And then the men would have to obey.
I know that I play some important role, and I am happy to be a Chukish woman that way, and I'm grateful for it.
This is how it was in many parts of the Pacific. In Samoa and Tonga, for example, women formed kitchen cabinets which met to discuss community affairs. Women's traditional roles involved more than taking care of the kids and keeping house. Their roles were complementary to men's roles. Both were needed for the sustenance and support of the community, and women shared in power, albeit indirectly. But what's happened to women today? How have these traditional roles changed? In the transition from subsistence to the cash economy, the role of women as producer is losing its value.
We don't value the kind of things that the Micronesian women used to do before. They're still producing some of these things, but we don't give them. They're not as valued as they used to be before.
Women has always, through history, played in the economic role, the economic livelihoods of the family. Although when we talk about economic role, we are equating that with the dollar sign today. We are not thinking about the child care, the housekeeping, the laundry, the training and the education that we give to the children. We don't say that these are contributing to the functioning of the family.
Women's authority over the land has diminished because of changes in the extended family system.
Right now, the extended family is breaking down, and we're shifting to the nuclear family. We've been influenced by the outside influence.
Women are taking a larger share of the domestic duties today, now that one or both partners are working.
The husband are now going to work in the office, and the women are now, besides doing their own job of keeping the house and bearing children, rearing, they also are assuming the men's burden of bonding breadfruit, if I may say so, or digging the taro from the taro beds.
I try to do my work at home pleasantly as much, and at the same time I take care of the office responsibilities as well.
Women's roles have now diminished. They work in the home and as mothers. Important as these are, they were once only part of their broader role.
The female, because they have been so acculturated to thinking of themselves as server, as the people or the sex that has to provide the basic services for the whole family.
Defining their roles in a changing society can be stressful for young women.
You see a lot of hysterical epigastric pain in some instances where the female wants to confront, wants to disobey just like the men, but cannot do that. So what happens is it creates some psychosomatic illnesses or some hysterical manifestations. A basic example, when I was working with medical referral in Honolulu, we've got cases where they sent young teenage girls to Hawaii for medical referral because of severe epigastric pain. They came there, they filed all kinds of tests, there was nothing, and the symptoms totally disappeared as soon as they got there.
The picture is not entirely bleak, however. As women lose stature in traditional roles, they are at the same time finding new roles. Some are now being educated as they were not in an earlier day. The education of women began years ago.
But once we realized that we were able to get financial aid from outside, they did not have any choice. They couldn't stop us women then. We just sort of applied to the schools. Once we were accepted, we find financial aid, we go.
They are also getting jobs.
Let's look at the women in the workforce. There are women in manager position. They are manager of the offices, and also they are office workers.
How much farther do women want to go? Perhaps they would like to have the opportunity to make whatever contribution they are capable of to their society.
But I see in Phnom Penh society that there is a great inequality for the accessibility to education by male and female. Women tend to, probably because of the domestic role transferred over, they tend to be treated, or they tend to be viewed as receive as much education as you can, just so to give you an experience so you can take care of a household. What about the other goals? What about pursuing other educational goals. So I see this as an equality and possibly transferred over from the traditional role.
Yet the society is founded on role separation. The great wall between men's roles and women's roles is strong.
It's a very difficult thing to me, because if I think of running against or running for a government position, I still have to know where I come from and what I learned as a woman when I was young, because I was taught to complement with men instead of competing with men. And that was how my grandparents and my parents taught me to be.
How can women gain access to other roles, particularly political positions, without challenging the basic cultural principle of role separation? The more women push, the more that wall totters. Are women in danger of sparking resentment from men if they push for new roles?
There are a lot of our men, and young and old, who question the function of this so-called women's program, women's movement here. Most of the men here equate the new focus on women in the FSM as a feminist movement, and that we are trying to teach the women in our society feminist idea, and to try to make them militant and to go out of the traditional role. And I would like to reassure my male counterpart that this is not our stand.
Today there are a handful of women, a few individuals, who have successfully taken on public roles.
We had in the mid-60s and I believe early 70s a woman legislator in the Chuk legislature that I know of, and her name was Kiriko Mori. Look at Pohnpei, we've got Senator Alonso, Kimiko Alonso, who is now with the Pohnpei State Legislature, and she's the first one in the FSM currently. And with all this focus on women development and advancing role and status of women in the nation, then we're beginning to look at her as a role model, really seriously looking at her as a role model.
You know, a while ago there was Yap had among the heads of the executive offices was a woman, Mary Bermond, Senator Figuere's wife. She was the director of health services. Terry Mabro is a special assistant to President on Public Information. Among the postmaster or whatever the title for a female, we have Carmen Dun, Governor Dun's wife. She is the postmistress or whatever in Yap. We do have a lawyer, a women lawyer in Yap.
Any hope for the future is rooted in the past, the realization that women have been major contributors to the community before and can be once again.
Now, the big word today that the United Nations is using is sustainable development, and the population control or the population crisis along with the environmental crisis. Now, if you take population, women are involved in that. If you take sustainable development, women are involved in that. If you take the environment, women are involved in that. So it must be an integrated approach for governments to take in order to be able, or in their efforts to achieve a level of sustainable development.
I think the women's program and all the NGO organization that we are working today, excuse me, I become emotional when it comes to this, that we believe in our culture. And excuse me. All we were trying to do is that we want to be able to assume and to be give the entitlement that traditional society provide for us in the complementary role, in the power sharing.
How? That's a question yet to be answered, a chapter that is not yet written.
For the men to look at the women, really their women, and ask, how well do I really know my women? How well do I really appreciate my women? How much I respect them? How much I am promoting their development so that they can be better wives, better mothers, better friends, and better whatever. And that I believe, sincerely believe that when they do that, then they will find out that family is really the cornerstone, and it requires mutual decision makers and making and complementary role so that they are equal partners in the decision.